So we are going to talk about how to write a speech, and specifically focusing on some pieces of advice that'll make the process of writing your speech easier. First piece of advice, you do not start by writing the introduction. You always start by writing the speech body, always. The speech body is 70 to 80% of your speech. That's where you're going to spend the majority of your time. And the introduction introduces your speech body, so you can't really write a strong introduction until you've written your speech body. You write your speech body first, it's really easy to write the introduction. You write your introduction first, it takes a ton of time to write that introduction. And then once you get to your speech body, it may not even connect to your introduction anymore. And then again, that's a waste of your time and you don't have any time to waste. So we start with our speech body. And the first thing we do is we figure out our main points. Your main points are determined by the maximum number of main points are determined by the length of your speech. You need enough time to devote to each main point, and each main point is equally weighted, meaning if you have 3 main points, you need to spend the same amount of time on main point 1 as you do on main point 2 as you do on main point 3. You can't have a big first main point and 2 small second main points. That lets you know they're not main points. So in a 6-minute speech, maximum number of main points you can have is 3. And so that's what we're doing for the best invention ever speech. Minimum number of main points is always 2, because if you're going to take a topic and you're going to divide it into parts, principle of division, you have to divide it into at least 2 parts. So 2 is always a minimum for main points, 3 is always a maximum for main points. But to make it easy on you for the speech, I picked your main points for you. So everybody in the class, your main points are history of your invention, how it works, and key benefits. In a speaking outline, you write those in keywords and phrases. You don't write for the history main point, you don't write, my invention was created by so-and-so in blank. You just write history. That's it. You just write history. How it works, again, don't make it into a huge sentence. For a speaking outline, keywords and phrases only, just put how it works. And then for benefits, you don't write, there are many benefits of this invention, you just write benefits, that's it. So if you wrote anything other than history, how it works, and benefits as your main points in your body, change it right now. History, how it works, benefits, that's it. Keywords and phrases only. All right, then you go into your subpoints, and your subpoints are ways that you develop your main points. They're like subcategories or subtopics within your main points. And so we're going to use the chat for this part. Because everybody is doing history of their invention, there are common elements of the history of any invention that are worth talking about. So I want you to drop in the chat, what are some like subcategories of the history of any invention that you could talk about in your speech? What do you think? What are some of those subcategories? Those of you who completed your outline, what did you put? All right, Falcon did a direct message, but Falcon put who made the invention. Absolutely. So the creator or the inventor or the team or the company that was behind this invention, talking about them would be great. Pedro also said inventor. Kylie said when it was made. We talk about this as kairos. That means like we are putting this invention within its historical context, depending on what you pick. So for example, Chance picked a Zippo lighter. We're putting that in its historical context. Good. So we've got the inventor, when it was made, anything else you would talk about in the history section that would make sense. Oh, so Brian, what makes it work would go in the how it works section. So that would go in the second main point. Kylie, why it was made. Yeah, most inventions are solutions to problems, right? So Kylie's got the hay silo. This is a solution to a problem. So what was the problem that this is a solution to? And then Samantha, you've got FDA approval. So you might in the history section, depending on what your topic is, want to talk about like were there any like legal or political constraints to getting this created? But for some of you, for your topics, that's not going to be applicable at all. Pedro, you've got how it branched out. That's a possibility too. So for example, let's say, let me get an example here. Wait, Wait, was that Pedro who brought that up? No, wait, who was that? Wait, where was it? Blah, 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 blah. How it branched out. Perfect, Pedro. So just like you talked about, this is just like one type of nail. You could talk about this in other type of nails, or you could talk about, how the just like different lengths of the nails changed over time. Absolutely. You could do that, like the history of it in that way. I love that you're the one who brought that up too. And then Krista, you could talk about like how it was like brought to the public, or how it was brought to its, audience or customers or whatever. Absolutely. So you're not going to include all of these as subpoints, but depending on what your invention is, you definitely will talk about some of them. And probably almost everybody's going to talk about who created it and like the sort of time that it was created within. That's pretty universal right there. Okay, nicely done. Good ideas. All right, so you got your subpoints. Same idea. If you're going to break a main point down, you break it down into a minimum of 2 elements. And then maximum, you're going to keep the same number of subpoints generally for each main point, because each main point needs to take the same amount of time. And then you'll see that between your main points, you have transitions. And transitions are connectives. They're organizational elements in your speech that are designed to let the audience know how your speech is going to flow. Unlike an essay, we can't look down and like forecast where your speech is going, and we can't go backwards if we get lost and catch up. We have to be able to follow where you are in your speech. And so the thing that you do to help us do that is you give us connectives, and transitions are one kind of connective. The transition is a specific kind of connective that goes between your main points, and it lets us know, it reminds us, hey, this is the main point I just covered. And now here's the next main point I'm going to move to. And it does that in a single sentence. So let's say my invention is this timekeeping cube. I love this. I don't know if I've showed this to this class before. Okay, I have showed this to the class. Thank you, Kylie. So let's say this is my invention. I've just talked about the history of this timekeeping cube, and now I'm going to move on to how it works. So my transition will sound something like this. Now that I've discussed the history of the timekeeping cube, let's move on to the way that it works. So that phrasing, now that I've discussed and let's move on, is key for the audience to know, oh, she's not still in her first main point. She's letting us know she finished that and she's moving on to the next one. So your wording is key in a transition. Now, here's the thing that's great about writing the speech body. Once you write the speech body, you have a lot of the introduction already done. So if you look at the introduction, there's 5 elements in an effective introduction, 5 functions of an effective introduction. And only 2 have to be in a specific location. The attention getter is always first. The main point preview is always last. Those do not get to go anywhere else. And then you have a topic statement, you've got a credibility statement, and you've got an audience connection, and those can go anywhere in the introduction. So let's start with the easiest part. That's the main point preview. The main point preview is the last part of your introduction. It's what you say before you move into your speech body, and it forecasts the organization of your speech. We got to make this organization really easy for the audience to follow, because if they don't know how our ideas are connected, they're going to tune us out. They're going to get distracted. They're going to get bored. They're going to tune us out. So main point preview, 1 sentence statement where you're letting the audience know what your main points are going to be. So it may sound something like this. Today, I'm going to cover the history of the timekeeping cube, how it works, and some key benefits. That's it. 1 sentence. Serial format, meaning main point 1, comma, main point 2, comma, main point 3. Don't get fancy. Don't tell us anything about the history. Don't tell us anything about how it works. Don't tell us anything about benefits. Save that for the body. Just say history, how it works, and benefits of your invention. Menagerie behind me. So if you created a lot of information in that main point preview, pull it out right now and just have history, how it works, and benefits. That's it. All right. And then I mentioned the attention getter is always first. So let's talk about the attention getter. The attention getter is the most creative part of your speech. And there are attention-getting devices that are designed to help draw your audience's attention into your speech, make them intrigued so they want to listen to the rest of it. And so you've got to be really creative in your attention getter. And because you need to be really creative, that's one of the reasons starting by writing in order for your speech is a problem, because people get stuck on the attention getter. There's lots of attention-getting devices. You saw these in your readings for class today. You can tell a story. You can recite a quote that's related to your topic. You can use a presentation aid. You can make an intriguing and startling statement. You can ask a question. That question can be a rhetorical question. That could be a question that you want the audience to answer. You could do a demonstration. You can do an audience interactive element. There's tons of attention-getting devices. You just got to figure out, for my audience, what will draw them in and make them interested. Sometimes students wait for that creativity to strike and they leave their attention getter blank on their outline. Don't do that. That's not helpful. What you should do instead is write down the first attention getter that comes to mind, whatever it is. It could be as simple as asking the audience, let me pick a topic right here, Nisha's topic. Okay, so it could be as simple as asking the audience, how many of you swept your floor this week? Is that going to be Nisha's final attention getter? Hell no, that's not going to be Nisha's final attention getter, but it is a placeholder and it does use an attention getting device, and she's going to put it as her attention getter until she moves on and comes up with a better, more creative, more interesting idea. So don't leave that section blank. Put something down, even if you know it's not going to make it into your speech, because then your brain has that creative freedom to keep thinking about, okay, what could I say that would be more interesting than this? And you can get other people's ideas. You can chat with me. I had a really fun time working on someone's attention getter yesterday. So anyway, so that's your attention getting device. Then you do 3 other things in your introduction, and they can happen anywhere in your introduction. They might even also be combined with your attention getter. So one thing that you need to do is share your topic statement. Make sure it's very clear to your audience what your topic is. So somewhere in your introduction, you're going to say, today I'm going to introduce you to whatever your topic is, the timekeeping device, the timekeeping cube. Make it clear. Yeah, sometimes when you write essays, they tell you to make that statement like really beautiful and creative. In public speaking, we just want it to be clear to our audience. We do not want to move into our speech body and they're still like, okay, what's Grant talking about? Like, I don't understand. Make it clear. Second, in these elements that you can put anywhere in your introduction, you are going to talk about your credibility. Why should the audience trust the information from you? What is your experience? What is your expertise? If you don't have any expertise, what are the, you can borrow some expertise from your credible sources. So you might mention your research. So your introduction, try and figure out, okay, what can I say about my experience or my research that will convince my audience that I know what I'm talking about in this speech. And then the third thing that you're going to do that you can do anywhere in your introduction is you're going to make an audience connection. Connect your topic to your audience's experiences or start building identification or rapport with your audience. All right, final part of your speech is your conclusion. It is the last part of your speech. And when you're writing your speech, write it last, because once you wrote your body in your introduction, it's going to be really easy to write your conclusion. Your conclusion has 3 parts. They go in this order. You start off with a concluding statement. This is a signpost, which is another connective. It's an organizational element. And a signpost is a word or phrase. It's usually a phrase that lets the audience know, I am done giving you new information in my speech. And now I'm about ready to just wrap things up, to close things up. So again, in the chat, what do you think the most common concluding phrase is? Drop that in the chat. What do you think the most common concluding phrase is? It's a signpost that lets us know I'm moving into my conclusion. That's a hint right there. What do you think it is? Drop it in the chat. Yeah, Amber's like, in conclusion, is that too obvious? Not too obvious. Jan's got it too. In conclusion is the most common concluding phrase. And it works because it's clear. It's common because it's clear. The audience has no question about whether you're just wrapping up a main point and moving on to another main point, or if you're completely done with your speech body and now you're moving to the end of your speech. So in conclusion is great. To conclude is also great. Samantha, therefore, they might struggle with a little bit because it might sound like you are just finishing a main point and are just trying to summarize that point. However, we'll talk about how therefore could be combined with another device to make it more clear. So you might be able to use it, but it's not obvious on its own. Other people will say to close or in closing. These are all great concluding statements. Other ones that are less common but still very clear are like to wrap up, in summary, to summarize, to wrap things up. These are all concluding statements. So pick your favorite, put it at the very start of your conclusion before you say anything else in your conclusion. Then you're going to pair that concluding statement with a main point review. You previewed your main points in the introduction. You shared those main points in the speech body. You're going to review the main points in the conclusion to make sure that the audience understood what those key points are. And the wording is going to be very similar to your main point preview in the introduction. So in your introduction, it sounded like today I'm going to cover. In your conclusion, it'll sound something like today I covered, or today we went over, or something like that. So let's get back to Samantha's idea of therefore. The audience might not recognize therefore as a concluding statement unless it was attached to a main point review, where it would sound something like this. Therefore, let's take a moment to review what we covered today, which was the history of the timekeeping cube, how it works, and key benefits. So if you combined it with that main point review, we would probably be able to figure out that that's a concluding statement. And then the final thing that you do is you add in a final thought / memorable ending. And in an informative speech like this one, your final thought or your memorable ending has to be informative. It's got to focus on what you want the audience to know or understand as a result of your speech. You can't ask them to do anything. So change their behavior. You can't ask them to change their mind either. Those are persuasive final thoughts. We call those call to actions. So it's got to be something that we'll think or know or what have you. And the way your introduction can help you out with your final thought is whatever attention getter you decide on for your introduction, you can usually connect to that in your final thought. So if you told a story in your introduction as your attention getter, refer back to that story in your conclusion. If you recited a quote in your introduction, maybe you use a similar quote in your conclusion. If you used a presentation aid in your introduction, maybe you show that presentation aid again in your conclusion. If you made an intriguing or startling statement in your introduction, maybe you refer back to that intriguing or startling statement. If you asked a question in your introduction, you might answer that question in your conclusion. So that's why writing your introduction before your conclusion can be beneficial. So if you wrote your body first, that would help you write your introduction. Then you write your introduction, and the introduction and the body help you write your conclusion. Your conclusion's brief, 5 to 10% of your speech time. Don't add new information in. New information goes in the speech body, but give us some sort of satisfying ending that we can remember your speech by.